the name doesn't do what the content justice. So I'm not going to pretend that I can create a new name for it, but I'm going to show you a way in which you can send newsletters which achieve your goals, but also is interesting for your kind of readers and subscribers as well. So let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see this okay. All good? Perfect. Okay, so yes, I'm Jamie. I'm from the Inbox Club. We're an email marketing agency, and most of what we do is help companies build newsletters, and not just send them, but make sure that the content in them is exceptional. They're achieving the goals and the KPIs that the company sets out at the start. And ultimately, I think Dave was someone who commented on one of my LinkedIn posts recently and said that our own newsletter, it's a stretch to say that he looks forward to it, but when it lands in the inbox, it's welcome, and he will always read it. So that's kind of what we're not going to kid ourselves. They're marketing emails at the end of the day, right? No one's sitting on the next edition's coming out tomorrow. Can't wait. But when it lands, is it enjoyable to read and does it offer value? So let's flick through some of this stuff. So section 1 is the kind of the fundamentals around this. And for anyone here that's in marketing or has done a bit of marketing before, this will be something, a lot of these things will make a lot of sense, and it'll be stuff that you kind of asked yourself before anyway. But it's really important when you're kind of building a newsletter that you kind of cover these questions and you have good answers to them. So we'll flip through these now. So who are you talking to? So we all know that we kind of need an ideal kind of customer profile when we think about who we're marketing to, right? And thinking about who we're writing to is incredibly important, because your newsletter isn't for you, it's for your subscribers. So once we start to understand who we're talking to, the problems that they face, the opportunities that they have, and where you fit in that equation, then you can start to understand what kind of content these people are going to resonate with. So it's important to do that. What job titles do these people have? What industries do they work in? Even thinking about demographics, in terms of age, in terms of gender and stuff like that. It will inform how you should talk, and it should inform your branding and other marketing activities as well. So that's the first question we need to ask. And then when we've answered that question, we then have a much better idea about the value we can offer, right? So I will use our own newsletter as an example. We know that the people on our list, they are either e-commerce managers, or they're marketing managers, or they are founders of marketing agencies. So because I know that, I know what value I have that I can offer them. So that informs so much of what our content is. And if you're writing a newsletter, before you hit send, a question you should ask yourself every time is, okay, what are they getting out of this? Is this just self-serving nonsense? Have I talked about the fact that I did a Tough Mudder this weekend when no one really gives a shit? What am I offering? What problem am I solving that actually people are going to want to open it and read it, and even better, open the next one because they know that they got value from the last one? Next question to ask is, what do we want from this? Right. And that comes after the last question, because we need to understand the value we're offering, but then we need to understand how are we tying that in to what we want to achieve as a business, right? Because we don't want to just start sending loads and loads of value and we're kind of selfless all the time and there's never the ask in there. There has to be the ask, there has to be the call to action. And actually, one client that we're just onboarding now, they're actually quite guilty of this, where they send so much value. They offer too much value. They invest so much money in putting bench press reports together, in putting webinars together. And so often people will get 6 months into knowing who this company is and only start to realize at that point who they are and what they do. Okay. So they need to be a bit more selfish. And there's a way that you can be selfish where it makes sense, right? So if I send a newsletter from the Inbox Club and I'm talking about abandoned basket automation for e-commerce stores, right? Very specific. I know that it's talking to the e-commerce managers on my list, or at least those that are in e-commerce agencies. And then I can tie in a really meaningful CTA. So here's, top 5 tips that make a killer abandoned basket abandoned basket flow or automation. So there's the value. My call to action then is, let's talk about your abandoned basket automation. I'll do a free review of your abandoned. So make it really specific. And that's when your ask comes in. So the more specific that is, the better. How often will we send a newsletter? That's really important, because there may be people in this on this call that are guilty of this. I know I've been guilty of it before, and most of our clients, and in fact, all of our clients are guilty of it, but that's why they use us. They start with all the best intentions. They maybe get a couple of additions out, and then it kind of falls by the wayside to the bottom of the to-do list. Then before you know it, it's 6 months before you send a newsletter. So what we want to do is we want to say, okay, well, what can I actually achieve? How regularly can I commit to this? And it's almost like you want to start a diet, or you want to start a workout regime, right? Everyone knows if you go whole hog in the first week, you're knackered, you never go back again, and it doesn't carry on. So if we think, okay, well, monthly, we always say monthly is the minimum. If you can commit to monthly, great. If you can commit to weekly, even better, but don't bite off more than we can chew. Because the key to sending great newsletters and great newsletter content and engaging and nurturing a list is consistency. So we want to make sure that we're consistently getting messages out. Where will we promote it? So a lot of our clients will have a list of subscribers that they've built up over time. And part of our job is encouraging them to be growing that list, because if a list isn't growing, then it's dying. We encourage a certain level of unsubscribes from an email marketing list. And because it keeps your list healthy and it keeps it churning. And the people that don't want to engage anymore will just take themselves off, and that's fine. But we need to be topping it up from the other end. So where are you going to promote the newsletter? And you start to think about your other channels. Do I have a good social media following? Let's start to convert those into some subscribers. Do I have a bit of money for an ad campaign? Do I have a lead magnet I can promote? Am I doing webinars, but I'm not getting subscribers from it? Starting to think about your other promotional activity and thinking, well, I'm doing these great things. What I want to do is to capture their data and start to nurture them. So how is that capture happening? Which platform? So people who are only really getting started with an email marketing in running their newsletter, they will ask us, what platform do you recommend? It's a bit like asking someone, what crisps do you recommend? They're like different platforms, and it depends which one works for you. You got to think about budget. You got to think about realistically, well, how many people are you emailing? If it's 200, then let's go for something that's quite simple, and then wait until we outgrow it, and then we get something more complex. So I would start by thinking about writing a brief for yourself, almost writing a brief for the platform that you want to use. Just some thoughts like, what do I need it to do? What don't I need it to do? Am I going for the bells and whistles and the shiny stuff when I don't need that? When actually all I need right now is to get something out, and to get something out consistently. We like one called Beehive. It's flat fee, doesn't charge you more per subscribers, and it's just great for newsletters. So we often recommend that one. If you're using MailerLite, Brevo, if you're using MailChimp, if you're using Active Demand, if you're using HubSpot, they're all fine. It's got to be the one that suits you, right? Suits your budget and suits your needs. So section 2, with the meat, or the jackfruit if you're vegan. So this is now, what are we going to put in the newsletter, right? This is the juicy stuff. This is the meat of the newsletter, and this content is going to make or break your newsletter. And when we think about all of those questions that we've just answered, all of that is the foundation. This stuff is the stuff above ground that people will see. I would start with one service, one feature, or one big idea. And what I'm talking about here is, okay, we've decided we're going to launch a newsletter. We've answered all those questions in section 1. Now we're going to think about edition 1, the first edition of your newsletter. What's going to be in it? And this is what I'm talking about here. So we want to pick one service that you offer, maybe even one feature of that service, or one big idea. Let's not get overcomplicated. We don't need to, in your first edition or in your second edition or in a single edition of your newsletter, you don't need to tell the whole world everything you do, because it's not going to stick to anyone. It's the age-old marketing thing. If you're marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one. So let's pick one thing, and to use our own example, about the abandoned basket thing. So that's one feature of one service that we offer, and we're talking very specifically about that. If we do that, we know, okay, it's going to talk to very specific people, and it means that the call to action that we have is also more likely to inspire action. Now, it is brave to do this because we had an e-commerce client who sold craft like quilting and craft stuff. And I know loads about quilting and craft stuff, by the way. No, I don't. But their emails, they would put kind of 50 links in their emails, every email. And they were so proud of their click rate. And I just thought, it's no wonder that you're getting high clicks when you've got 50 links in your newsletter, because if anyone's got fat thumbs or leans on their mouse or laptop, they're probably accidentally clicking things if you've got that many things links in. So what we want to do is think about, yes, we want a high click rate, but we want those meaningful, high quality clicks. And the more specific you are with the content, the more it's going to resonate with people and inspire intentional action. Your proposition in one sentence, make it good. I think this is really important. It's this kind of speaks to a wider kind of positioning strategy here, but if you're not clear on this, it's harder to be clear to your subscribers and your clients and prospective clients. So for us, we try to be as clear as possible. And by the way, we're still working on this because it's not an easy thing. I would encourage people to bring in external people to help you with that, because sometimes an external perspective is really helpful. And they see things that you don't, and they understand the value that you're missing. We have a client who we send a newsletter for. They're a digital PR agency, and they told us one of the biggest bits of value that they get from working with us that we had no idea we were offering. And so getting that external perspective is really important. But when we understand our proposition in one sentence, it will make it easier to speak to people. What do we want people to do? So we have an idea. We have the one big idea, the service feature or thought leadership piece. We understand our proposition. So what is it we will actually want people to do as a result of reading this email, right? And this is what informs our call to action. Do we want people to book a call? Do we want them to sign up to a webinar? Do we want them to follow us on social media? What is the one thing we're going to ask them to do in this campaign? And how does that tie into the content that we've written so far? And this is the time to be selfish. This is where, okay, I've offered value here. Now here's my ask. And it's the reciprocity thing. So that will inform your call to action. And when you have a clear call to action, it means you can really measure the success of your emails, right? If you don't have a clear call to action, who knows how well it did? You're just kidding yourself with open rates, which I'll talk about in a sec. Then the content of the email. So this is our kind of tried and trusted framework for a monthly newsletter. And I just want to emphasize there monthly, because if we are sending a monthly newsletter, we can afford to put together a longer form piece of content. If we're sending weekly, like we do at the Inbox Club, it needs to be shorter, snappier, and not long form every single time. Also, it would bloody kill me to put a long form piece of content every week for our own newsletter when we have to do it for our clients all the time anyway. So it goes back to how much can we bite off, and so that we can make sure that we can chew it. So for a monthly newsletter, we tend to go over this, right? So we go through a first section, which is a warm, short, light-hearted intro. It's from Nick, it's from Ollie, it's from Dave, it's from Charlie. It's not from your business, and it's the personal side of it. It's I'm a person talking to the people on my list, and the easiest way to write that intro is just be yourself, which sounds cliche and shit, but imagine you're writing how you talk. Imagine you're writing to one person, not your whole list, and then that will start to come more naturally, right? So that lighthearted intro, it does things. It's not pointless. It builds personality, familiarity, and trust with your audience. And those sound like big fluffy things, but actually they work. If you just launch into content straight away, it can be, it will turn people off. It doesn't warm them up. It doesn't engage them. We need to do it in a way that kind of grabs attention as well. In the second section, we think about the value. So for me, okay, it was like 10 tips to craft a great abandoned checkout flow automation. For someone like Ollie at Startup Stand Up, it might be something around a value piece, something very specific about founders looking for funding. Here are 5 tips or 5 ways in which you can secure funding that you might not have thought of. Right? It's those kind of value pieces. Or it might be, if Dave was writing one, it might be something along the lines of, okay, well, if we want more referrals and more collaborations, here are 5 ways in which you can nurture the people in your network. Here are 5 ways to open a conversation with them, or something like that. So something very specific that people can. What you want to do is you want people to bookmark it and think, this was really bloody helpful, so I need to bookmark it. I think printing it off and sticking it on your wall is a stretch, but if we can aim for that, that'd be awesome. A third section about a success story. So somewhat, and we don't want to just like brag about a case study where we have done really well for someone. It might not even be something that you did, but something that you noticed someone else doing that is adjacent to the service that you're offering, right? And that's like, okay, this is an example of what I'm talking about in action, and here's why it works, right? It might be your own case study, and if it is, great, but if it's not, that's absolutely fine. If you're if you're an expert in your field, recognizing success in your field elsewhere is still something valuable, still something that as an expert, is an insight that you can offer. We see it with all the time. There's a social media agency that I sign up to their newsletter, and I wish that they were our client because their newsletter is great. But their newsletter is a roundup of great social media content, right? And it's really readable. It's funny, and there's always a tie-in for the content, which is along the lines of, even if you're in B2B, it doesn't mean you have to be boring. Here are 5 B2B brands that killed it this week. Fourth section, this is when we do our call to action. Yes, it can be a section, but I would argue after the value piece, you have your call to action and you repeat the same call to action throughout. Okay. Don't put different call to actions in, repeat the same one throughout. The next section, some bonus content behind the scenes, a little bit of kind of, personality, familiarity, that kind of stuff. And then perhaps a sneak preview of what's in the next edition, what's coming up, other value that you can offer, and a sign off. Quite conscious of time, but here's some finishing touches for this edition. From name is actually more important than the subject line when you consider getting opens. When there was a survey that I haven't included in here because I'm short-sighted, but there's a survey that was done, I think, by HubSpot that showed that a higher percentage of people considered the from name first when considering whether to open an email or not. Subject line is second, preview text, which is the bit under the subject line, was third. So we want to get this from name right. We want to test that, see what works. We want to test 2 subject lines. That would be great. Extra points if you do that. Some preview text as well, which serves to back up your and support your subject line. And then please test your newsletter on mobile and on dark mode. 82% of people prefer to use dark mode. So if you're not testing your newsletter on dark mode, you're being stupid. Sorry. So your logo might not show up, or your call to action buttons might not show up because they're the wrong color, or the font's the wrong color. In dark mode, it just looks shit. So and test it on mobile, because nothing turns people off more than a weirdly stacked email because it doesn't show right on mobile. I was really ambitious with the amount of content that I wanted to get through here, but I think those 2 sections are the things that I wanted to talk about most. And what that does, it just informs or helps inform what are we going to send to people and why should we be sending them. There's a narrative that is email marketing is dead and newsletters are shit and no one reads them anyway. We're trying to breathe a bit of new life into that because newsletters are getting trendy again. People are reading newsletters, but that doesn't mean you should just send out shit newsletters. It means that you should send high quality content, because those newsletters are the ones that get high engagement and are achieving your goals as a business. We built a newsletter business before we started our agency. It's fully monetized. It's a business in its own right, and it's just a newsletter, right? So, and you've seen these huge newsletters in the US, like Morning Brew, and the other one, Hustle, I think. These newsletter businesses sell for so much money. So there is a lot of power in first party data. You've gathered your list. These are your people. That's your data. You're not relying on Microsoft on LinkedIn. You're not relying on Elon Musk on Twitter. You're not relying on TikTok being banned in the US and you lose your audience overnight. You gather that data. It's your data, or at least you have permission to store and use that data. It protects you. It gives you a firm foundation of people to nurture and to market to. I'll send these slides around. There's like 5 minutes left. Is that right, Ollie? Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be really happy to answer them. I'd also might ask for this, if my selfish point of this call is connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll drop that in the chat. Let's have a one-to-one. I'm not going to sell you a newsletter. Don't worry. Let's talk about your business. Let's talk about the things that I didn't get to cover here, and let's see if there's some value that I could grab from you as well, and learn about what you're doing. So that's my ask. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's chat.
Thanks very, very, very much, Jamie. That was wonderful. Dave.
Yeah, first of all, I would encourage everyone to connect with Jamie and sign up to his newsletter, because it is genuinely good, and he posts loads of good stuff on LinkedIn as well. So I don't like blowing smoke up his ass, but I'm going to. So there you go, because he's genuinely good. And you stole the thunder of my first question right at the start, which was, what should we call it other than a newsletter? Because I've given up and just called mine a newsletter, right? But so my question was on the name one, but I think I've answered it myself, because I saw your thing about split testing. So should I split test? Presumably I should split test my from name, right? Because I've started doing Dave at Collaboration Junkie rather than Dave Plunkett. I presume the easiest thing to do is split test it, right? And see what people respond to.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think sometimes split testing as a practice can put people off, because it's like, okay, I need to like understand the technical side of email marketing because someone said split testing to me. In reality, send a couple of editions with one from name, send another couple of editions with the other from name, and see which one does better. It's always better for a person. It needs to be something that people recognize. So if they know you as Jamie from the Inbox Club or Dave from Collaboration Junkie, that should be what the from name should be, because that's how they know you. If they know you as Dave Plunkett, it should be Dave Plunkett. It's about recognition.
Okay, and then presumably, just to follow on from that, if that's all right, I think they always used to come from Dave Plunkett, and then I've just so I can just look at historical data, can't I, and go, yeah,
absolutely, that'll tell you the story.
Yeah,
do it this afternoon.
Well, I'll be up a mountain, but maybe Tuesday.
Thanks, Dave. Paul.
Hi, great press, Jamie. Thank you. What do you do? What can you do? I know we've obviously spoken to you, but what can you do to sort of make our lives easier in terms of how much can we do ourselves without the Inbox Club, and how much can you do to take all of this pressure off us?
For sure, yeah. Great question. I think that tees me up to at least put some kind of pitch in at this point and be selfish. But I think it's do as much as you can. Look, right, newsletters are one part of your overall marketing strategy. It's not the silver bullet. I'm not saying ignore all your other channels. It needs to work in conjunction with the rest. So, and we're all busy founders that barely have enough time to think and watch Love Island. So, it's, well, how much can we do? How much can I do, and how much am I willing to pay for someone else to do it? In terms of what the Inbox Club does, I'll sit down and spend half an hour to an hour with anyone and not charge you to brainstorm newsletters. I'm sad enough to love newsletters that much as that I will enjoy doing that. So if anyone wants that kind of thing, let's chat, because we're copywriters, we're email marketers, and I'm always happy to offer that help. In terms of what we actually do as a service, our monthly newsletter service is where we build, write, send it, we sit down and interview you for half an hour for every edition. You're the experts. We get all that juicy content out of you, and then we write it so that you're Paul on your best day in every edition of the newsletter. So that's 425 plus VAT a month. I'm cringing slightly at having said that because I really didn't want to say, you know, sell at all in this, but yeah, that's what we can do for people.
It's why you're here, and also we want to understand how much anything's going to cost or whatever it is. I mean, actually, just putting that package down, you know, in an email or in the chat or sending it around afterwards would be useful.
Absolutely, we've got a landing page. So I'll do that. It's even better. Thanks, Paul.
Jamie, what I was going to suggest is put the slides and that offer in our Circle platform, or send it to Lee, and we can do that.
Okay.
And any sort of group discounts available for stand-up members.
Always for you lovely people.
Yeah, excellent. Laura, thanks, Paul.
Thank you. I've got two questions and I'm aware of time, so maybe I'll just do one. So for us,
Go for two.
Can I? Oh, thank you. So, all right. So the first one was around that bit that you showed, having that first section being like highly personalized, coming from kind of the person behind the company, and I could see that working really well for our B2B stuff, but for the B2C, we deliberately want to be kind of anonymous in terms of those figures. We've done some kind of other branding work around kind of creating that kind of character brand within the app. And I just wondered if you'd ever seen examples where that worked well, or whether it just comes off as a bit cheesy and shit. So that's kind of the first question. And then the second one is thinking again about the B2C stuff. It's really about customer engagement and re-engagement. And the obvious kind of synergy for me there is with push notifications. And I wondered whether, from your perspective, there's a good synergy between maybe ways that push notifications aren't used very well, whether that's another opportunity to promote some of the content that we're using in the newsletter. And so yeah, that framework too. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, great. Thanks for those questions, Laura. So I would say the stuff that I shared today is definitely geared more towards a B2B audience, right? So I think we work with two types of businesses. We work with B2B service-based businesses where we write newsletters for them and do CRM sequences and stuff. We also work with e-commerce brands and look after their customer retention, lifetime value, all that stuff, automations. So they're very different tactics, and it's much more about look and feel branding with a D2C audience, right? You know, you don't want the founder in every email kind of introducing themselves and all that stuff, right? Because it's less about thought leadership. It's less about personal relationships with a D2C audience. Having said that, there are still opportunities to be personable and warm in a D2C with a D2C audience, especially, you know, we've just onboarded a client that sells like baby products, right? So we have to think about what kind of language are we using, how are we talking to people, and not just selling all the time. Is there a bit of storytelling? Is there some value pieces? You know, a lot of e-com stores will have some kind of blog. You know, if it's around baby products, it will be some. You know, forgive me, I don't have children, but so I might be talking out my arse here. But you know, it's 5 things you might want to consider when putting your baby to bed, or something like that, or you know, 5 baby food recipes. I don't know. So you know, there are things that we can offer that offer value beyond for a D2C audience for sure. And your other question on push notifications, yes, they work really well. So we actually don't use them for any client right now. There are 2 things that work really well with email marketing. One is push, and the other one is SMS. Both of those things can be quite invasive if they're not used correctly. I was talking to a brand yesterday, and they were telling me that one of their competitors, he signed up on their SMS list. He'd got 7 texts in one day from them. Right, obviously that's stupid. So for me, we have to think about how can we make sure that if I'm doing a push notification, that it's offering value and not just being invasive and annoying, because it is on your phone, right? Emails are one thing, but SMS and push is another.
And that's helpful. Thank you very much. I've connected with you, so I look forward to speaking with you more.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Any last questions for Jamie while she's with us this morning? I think we've exhausted everything. One question from me, actually, Jamie, before you go. I see a lot of newsletters. Some are really good, and I look forward to reading them. Others, like dishwater, you know, they're dull, bland, beige, you name it. Can you afford to be really sort of brave and bold and really go for it with newsletters so people look out for them, you know, humorous and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we always push our clients to be as bold and creative as possible. And you have to kind of consider who their audience is and what their brand is outside of email marketing. But what we find is that bolder and more creative people are with their newsletters, the better the newsletters perform. And our best newsletter will always be our own one because we have complete creative freedom over it. You know, our open rates are kind of up to 70%, sometimes 80%, which is phenomenal. You know, with our clients, we're trying to get them into the 40s. So be bold and be creative. You've got to consider your own brand and whether that fits in. It's got to be useful still. Avoid clickbait because it's got to be satisfying. You know, there's no point tricking people into opening your email. But yeah, 100% it works. I can testify to that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jamie. Dave, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it's around open rates we should be looking for, but I think Jamie just answered it.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not 70%, but then again, I'm not an email marketing professional. But yeah. So okay, so anything above 40, you're doing all right, yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. You're in a good space if you're above 40.
I guess click-throughs, that depends on what the call to action is, yeah, right? Like if it's a product, it's going to get less click-through than an article or click on this funny thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, the clicks I said earlier, it's about getting the high quality intentional clicks. It might be you don't even want to target at getting clicks in a particular email, right? So it really depends on the goals. Yeah, there are loads of things I could say about metrics, and that was the next part of the presentation that I put together. But I will send that around. It'll be on the slides, and anyone who wants to get a call with me, we can dive into that.
Well, that's been fabulous. Thanks, Dave, for the question. Thanks, Jamie. You're going to get a lot of love and big ups on LinkedIn today. Be sure of that.
Appreciate
it. Hope to see everyone at the walk next week if you can make it on Wednesday. So.